Hi there, I'm Ross Jenner. I'm the Sales Director for VU.CITY, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about VU.CITY and then show you a really quick demonstration of the product we have. So VU.CITY is a smart city platform, and that can mean lots of different things to different people. But effectively, we have an interactive 3D model of a city. We have a number of cities, and I'll go on to those in a second, but predominantly our focus has been on London to date. And our vision for VU.CITY really is to make the best possible city for all. And we do that by helping people organise, visualise and analyse city data in the clearest and most accessible ways to make better decisions, ultimately making better decisions about cities, how planning works in cities and the future of those cities, trying to make smart cities a reality. As I mentioned, we've focused on London to date, but we have a number of other cities already in existence, and we're bringing other cities online all the time. But the London model that we're going to look at today actually covers 1,619 square kilometres of London, and that's all of the 33 London boroughs added together. We're working really closely with nearly all of the London boroughs. We have 24 of those currently signed up and using the platform, and a number of others who are already looking to come on board as well. Through our modelling of the city, we have created an accurate model in terms of the number of trees within the city and also the number of buildings. So you can see there are actually 10,390,300 trees in all of the area that we cover within London, and there are 3.3 million buildings as well. So let's move across to the platform, and I can talk to you about the functionality that we have within there. So today I'm using actually a new platform from VU.CITY. So it has the same functionality as the application that we had before, but now it operates completely in the cloud. So we've actually brought this forward in the current situation that we find ourselves with. We were going to launch it in the summer. So we've brought this forward, and we're now allowing our customers and people who are coming onto the platform to use the cloud platform, which really helps support people working remotely who don't have potentially access to the infrastructure and computers that they had previously. So you can see here, I'm currently floating above a city. In this case, it's London, and it's Trafalgar Square that I'm over. And if I move in here, I can start seeing the detail that we have within the model. So effectively, we fly a plane over a city, we take loads of stereo pairs of images, and that allows us to create an accurate model, both of the terrain and the buildings within the city. The roofscape here has lots of detail, but you can see that the facades of the buildings, the sides of the buildings are blank in most cases. And we work to an accuracy of plus or minus 15 centimetres, both in terms of the roofscape and in terms of the terrain. So I can now go anywhere in London and look at what exists there in this digital world. But let's go to a couple of places to show just some of the details that we can look at, some of the functionality that we have. So if I go over to the city, when I go to a new area within the model, you can see that it sort of builds up from the ground. That buildings then appear, and as I zoom out here, you'll start seeing a few more of those buildings appearing within the platform. If we just give them a couple of seconds to appear. As you can see, we now have a number of buildings in the City of London. So the city has been a massive area of change within London, and you can see new buildings appearing all the time. And this allows me to show the timeline within VU.CITY. So this shows not only the buildings that exist, but also the buildings that have been consented and are going to be built, and the buildings that are consented and are already being built. So the blue ones show those consented buildings that are under construction. The yellow ones are those that have got planning consent but are yet to actually start being built. And you can see here that actually the Gherkin, which was incredibly prominent when it was built, very soon will be more or less completely hidden unless I go to the eastern side of the cluster. And this gives us an opportunity to start talking about some of the constraints that are within London in terms of architecture and how that affects the buildings that are made. So in the background here, we can see St Paul's Cathedral. Well, there's lots of restricted views that mean you cannot build in the background or in the foreground of the Dome of St Paul's. And this is why these buildings within the city actually fork in the way that they do, because there is a view that is taken down Fleet Street, and it means that you cannot build in the background of St Paul's. So that's why the cheese grater leads as it does, and the scalpel, and these new buildings will also follow that as well. So let's move out from the city and just quickly move up to Angel. So this is just north of the city, within London, and this allows me to show some of the other functionality that we have within VU.CITY. So let me just get rid of those for a second. So this is a fictional site, but I'm going to just show some of the functionality that you can use to make an appraisal of a site really, really quickly, remotely, without having to visit that location. So this is actually a Sainsbury's supermarket at the moment, but let's use the fictional case that this is a site that's come up that we may be looking to develop a new building on. So I can look at some data to look at some initial constraints on that. So I might want to look at something like conservation areas. So there are a number of areas in London, these ones that are shaded in green, that are conservation areas, that mean there are certain restrictions that what you could build within those areas. So you can see here, we're just outside of the conservation areas within this particular part of London. And there are also a number of listed buildings, so historic buildings within London. And there's a large range of different buildings here, and you can interact with the model here and find out more data. So you can see here that this is a church, the Church of St Silas with All Saints, but there are a number of different types of buildings that can be listed. So here, there's a pie and eel shop, for example. But as luck would have it, all of those points aren't on our site. So we now think we've got a good chance that actually we might be able to build something here. So the first thing I might want to do is clear that site. So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to click the buildings that I want to remove from the site. And you can get right down to those being the trolley stores, I believe, that are in the car park at the moment. So I can hide all of those. So the next thing I might want to do is create a new building. So create an outline of a building that I think I might want to just test in terms of size of something that I could do. And I can do that literally by clicking on the ground within VU.CITY, and I'm going to do this really quickly, so I'm not going to be massively accurate, and I'm just going to create a big blob. But here I can create a floor plane, and then I can actually add floors. And as I do that, you can see this kind of small number at the bottom here is showing me the GEA of the building. That's the gross external area. But effectively, that means all of the usable area of this building in its very basic form. So this gives us a good example of being able to say, okay, I may have done some calculations to say I need to get 100,000 square meters of GEA here in order to make this a viable development for me. So I've now created my building, and I can see that it certainly isn't going to win any awards, but at its basic level, I can see the structure that maybe I might want to put on there. But there might be some other constraints that I need to take into account. And one of those is the protected views, which I've already mentioned within London. And if I click this one on, you can see that actually one of those viewing corridors, which is very easy to visualize within VU.CITY, is shown here. And actually the yellow piece of my building here, the building that goes through this yellow piece means that there's probably going to be a restriction on that. So I could adjust the building that I have within here, and you can use these tools together. So I could just bring that down until I got to that point, and then maybe manipulate it and bring the back half up. Because we're going through things really, really quickly today, actually what I'm going to do is just hide that and show that what we could do is just import a building instead. So here, let me just switch off my viewing point there. Here, I've imported a building, and you can have a number of different iterations that can be shared with you. And importantly, what's happened here is that an architect who also uses VU.CITY has gone in, created those models in the CAD package or the modeling package that they use, imported them into VU.CITY, and then has shared that with me. So me, as this person who's using VU.CITY now, don't need to have any modeling experience or actually import those models myself, because they can just be shared in a very secure manner with me. So let's look at one of the other ones here. maybe this one. So we've got higher at the front, and we can now see the full extent of my building. Now, I'm not going to go through all the other tools that we have within here, but let's just look at a couple of those. So one of them is sunlight. So I can have an accurate sunlight path, so I can see the shadowing that is going to happen from my building. And this is a building that obviously isn't there at the moment. And I can do that on any time of the day and any day of the year to see the overshadowing. I can also highlight buildings, and I can look at the model in different ways. At the moment, we're flying above the city, but actually you're not going to make an assessment of a building from above, you're going to make an assessment from the ground. And this is where I can click onto the ground, and I can just get down and start looking at the building as it is here. And VU.CITY is built in a games engine, so effectively I'm playing a really big video game here. So I can now start moving around and actually make an assessment of my building from the ground. The final thing that I was going to go through today is really just another use for those cameras. So rather than making an assessment from the ground, and you can do that in a number of ways in terms of agreeing views with the planning authorities and using this actively through planning and right through to committee. But I could also just place a camera on my facade or on my roof terrace up here. Let me do that. You can see my roof terrace, and I can look out from that and see the amazing views that I'm going to get down towards the city, moving across. That would be down to Blackfriars when it builds out, and then moving out to the west. Let me just move it so that we're a little further west. I'm just going to adjust this model here. Switch that on. You can see the telecom tower in the distance there. But the other thing that you can do within VU.CITY is just rather than just adjusting the sunlight, you can also adjust the weather. So within here, I can put some clouds in the sky, and let me move that across maybe to this time later in the year, maybe in December, and you can start seeing the amazing sunset that you might get if you happen to live in that apartment. There's lots of other things that we can do with VU.CITY, but that's what I was going to go through today. There's all sorts of data layers, and you can import your own data into here to make sure that you're taking into consideration any of those data points. Thank you for listening to the very short introduction to VU.CITY. If you want any more details, please contact me, Ross Jenner. You can either get me on my direct email, which is r.jenner@vu.city, or you can inquire at sales@vu.city. Go to our website, which is just www.vu.city, and you'll find all the information there. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.